I'll give the floor to Mr. Peter Greenwood. He is a former university professor. He is a EU and UNESCO expert. He's going to talk to us about the second subtheme, that is the teacher training and learning. You also have about 15 minutes. Thank you, sir.
UNESCO-UNEVOC network in Bonn. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's a great pleasure to be here, particularly as we're going to be addressing the issue of the TVET workforce. Okay, brilliant, thank you. And it's a real, we're extremely appreciative of the fact that the TVET workforce is now high up on the list of priority areas for this forum. So what I'd like to do briefly is to go through some background for my presentation. Who are the TVET workforce and why do they matter? Some of the current challenges. What are the priorities for a systemic development of the TVET workforce? And how do we want to invest the breakout session? So first of all, the background in terms of the regulation. This is a UNESCO initiative, so what is the regulatory background for this discussion on TVET workforce? So if we go back to 1966. Ooh, that's exciting.
You're on track. Forward.
Oh. Okay, let me continue. I hope that the slides will catch up with me. So since 1966 to 2015, there was little attention to the issue of the TVET workforce. But suddenly, there's an explosion of interest around 2015 with the Incheon Declaration, the TVET recommendation in 2015, which came to the conclusion that the quality and relevance of vocational education and training was reliant largely on the quality of the teachers and instructors. This was followed by the UNESCO TVET recommendation, TVET strategy, which identified a number of is that me? Which identified 3 strategic objectives for the development of the TVET workforce. Their professional development, capacity building of teacher training institutions and their managers, and to build up the evidence base through country and regional studies. And this is being followed by a monitoring recommendation which is in preparation, which again emphasizes the fact that the TVET workforce is an integral part of the education and training workforce. Now, who is the workforce? What are we talking about in terms of the players? Well, we're talking about the TVET teachers, the teachers in the classroom, the instructors who are also working in the schools, but also the in-company trainers and instructors, and also those that are working, for example, for territorial bodies, developing courses or delivering learning programs for the unemployed. So these are colleagues, these are players who are not only in the education system, but they're also outside the education system. And this creates its own special complication. I'm just a bit nervous about what's going on behind me. So, why has there been such a spike in interest in the TVET workforce? And I think this comes from the changes in work and life which are going on outside the education and training system. I think we're all familiar with the headlines about the new types of jobs that may come with the greening exercise, the greening developments. New shortages, particularly for digital literacy. Creating new business, the emphasis on entrepreneurship. Innovation and its role in economic and social development. But skills are needed for innovation, not only technology. The new types of transversal skills that are coming through across the labour market and across our lives, through digital developments, through greening, through entrepreneurship. These are creating a new level of transversal skills. And finally, from the other side, the kind of threat side, there is the threat, the potential, the actual fall in demand for cognitive and manual skills, which are threatening particularly let's say, the lower levels in the labour market. Now, all of these create new demands for skills, and the main providers of those demands for skills are, of course, the TVET workforce. So why... Okay, I'm beginning to learn. So why then the TVET workforce matters? Well, they're the key players in learning for work and life, the transversal skills. They're bringing a dual professionalism, so the teaching and technical vocational skills. They're the single most contributor, as this has been expressed in several of the presentations so far, to the outcomes of the education and training system, and in particular for the TVET system, and we're talking about then ISCED levels 3, 4, and 5, where TVET creates an increasing role, if you like. And of course, the TVET players, the TVET workforce, are fundamental for any other reforms or changes to the workforce. Without their engagement, reforms, developments are facing an uphill struggle. They are strategic players for the cooperation between the education and training system and business, and vice versa, between the business and the education and training system. And of course, they're the main actors for in-company training and training for the unemployed. So they have a fundamental role in developing the skills that we need in our new societies and economies. Now, largely, we place the emphasis on change on the policy and system levels. This is the traditional way in which we tend to work. But then the question here is this challenge now, in this context, the challenge just for policymakers? We asked this question at the UNESCO Global Forum, the Global Learning Forum, in May this year. And the answers that we got back were quite interesting. You see, sorry. You see some of the quotations from this meeting, which talked about empowering teachers and trainers in innovative school cultures, the active and open engagement with local economic, territorial and social stakeholders, the need for flexible pathways, broader occupational profiles and not single specific jobs, encouraging new pedagogical processes, and placing emphasis on the need for localized activities, localized innovation. And as a result of this, we were encouraged to work much more closely with the schools and with the enterprises as the leaders, if you like, of the changes in the demands on the TVET workforce. The policy and system development, of course, remains important, but it's struggling to keep up. So in this case, more demand comes from the school side and the enterprise side. You noted before that one of the parts of the strategy, the UNESCO strategy, is to develop the evidence base for TVET, the TVET workforce. And you're probably quite familiar with the education policy reviews, regional analyses that have been published recently on, for example, South Africa, the Arab region. There's one just coming out in the kind of Caribbean region. There's a lot of work being done with the ILO, the World Bank, OECD, and bilateral donors, including the GIZ, for example, has been also developing the education base, the evidence base, sorry. So what are then, if you look at some of the common issues that come up in these reviews, and I try to put them in policy, system, school, and company dimensions, because that's the way in which we're kind of proposing to think about this during today. And what you see in terms of the challenges are an inadequate integration of education and training policy and the TVET workforce. They're not connected enough. The negative stigma for the TVET, and this has an implication on the TVET workforce. So TVET is an unattractive career path. At a system level, well, there's little attention being given to the preparation of the specific TVET workforce. For example, developing the competency standards that might be needed for TVET. And there's a slow rate, the struggle to innovate the education and training of our teachers with what's happening on the outside. At a school level, there are issues of recognition and empowerment. The centralized curricula we were referring to yesterday in the discussions. Access, availability of continuing professional development, difficulties with recruitment and aging workforces. Cooperation with industry, particularly in centralized workforces. And then we have the company dimension, the specific needs of in-company workforces and limited opportunities for work-based learning. The Caribbean study that we've just finalizing, and I have here a copy, so this study is about to be published. You should get it, I hope, for your end of year, your Christmas presents, if you want to order it. The Caribbean study, which we'll go into during the breakout session, paints a slightly nuanced picture of what's happening. There's progress in terms of the policy level, but TVET remains an unattractive profession. At a system level, there's clearly improving quality of the TVET workforce, particularly in the pre-service, but there are difficulties in relating the system level with the industrial development in the countries. At a school dimension, there are recruitment shortages and low empowerment of the TVET workforce and limited opportunities to gain technical skills in the workplace. But on the other hand, in the company side, there are emerging continuing professional development opportunities that are happening in the region. So it's positive, but there are limited opportunities, there are limited workplace placements for trainers and trainees. So what then could be the priorities for us to look at? So, and this is what we're suggesting to look at during the breakout sessions. So how do you integrate TVET and education and training and sectoral policy? How do you place the TVET workforce properly in those policy developments? How do you incentivize them? How do you incentivize the TVET workforce and provide them with careers? How do you build capacity for the TVET institutions? How do you empower and recognize the TVET workforce in schools to deliver 21st century skills? Broadening cooperation as well between schools and the territorial bodies. And then finally, at a school level, at a company level, how do you increase support for pedagogy, the pedagogy of trainers in the companies? We're proposing to continue to build up the evidence base that I referred to before, so looking at the role of the TVET workforce in education policy reviews, continuing regional and thematic studies, so there's one under development in the Mediterranean region on in-company trainers, encouraging platforms, so opportunities such as this to talk about the TVET workforce, and then finally to mobilize the interagency, so the international community, to pay more attention to this issue. So if I look towards the breakout session, we'll look at the policy level, guided by Professor Jailani Yunos from Malaysia. So what are the challenges? What are the opportunities to integrate the TVET workforce at the policy level? Dr. Charmaine Barrett will present part of the findings of this recent study in the Caribbean region and look at how to develop the TVET system, the teacher training system. Reinaldo Hernandez from DUOC in Chile will help us to look at how schools are adapting to the challenges that they're facing on an everyday basis to change their training provision. And Christian Stewart from GIZ will take us through the challenges facing the work-based learning, the in-company trainers. So we have a star-studded cast, and we hope that you will join us in the breakout sessions. And our aim is to use a Jamaican approach, so to move from workforce, the TVET workforce matters, to the TVET workforce no problem. So we look forward to you helping with that. Okay, thank you very much indeed.